Welcome back. Turning now to what's been an Independence Day tradition on this program, as we mark the holiday with a look at independence in America. See what we did there? According to recent polling, the number of political independents is at an all-time high, with nearly half of Americans identifying that way in 2025. But despite that, there are currently only 3 independent lawmakers in Congress: Senators Bernie Sanders and Angus King, and as of this spring, Congressman Kevin Kiley of California, who decided to leave the Republican Party in March following redistricting in his state. Joining me now is Congressman Kevin Kiley of California. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us on this holiday Friday. I want to start by talking about that dichotomy, because according to that polling, the number of Americans identifying as independents is at an all-time high. But as we mentioned, there's only 3 independents in Congress. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's 3 in Congress. I'm the only one in the House out of 435 members. In fact, I'm the first independent in the House since 2019. So you could certainly argue that independents are sort of the most underrepresented demographic in America today, when it's up to half the country not identifying with one party or the other, and yet only 1 representative. I think it's a reflection of just how entrenched the party system has become in this country. All of the rules are geared towards forcing you to choose one side or the other, but increasingly that's just not where Americans are at. And frankly, I think people are just looking for a little more common sense, less partisanship, and maybe on this 250th anniversary to spend more time remembering what unites us as Americans rather than what divides us.
I know you've said you left the party because you felt like things got too partisan in Congress, but some of your critics say the only reason you did this was as a way to win re-election under California's new maps. What do you say to that?
Well, if that was my goal, it wasn't necessarily the most surefire strategy. There's been exactly 1 independent elected to the U.S. House in the last 70 years. I actually had the opportunity to run in a safe district if I had stayed with the Republican Party, but I thought that would be making things worse. That would be exploiting the gerrymander. That would be worsening political divisions in this country, and I wanted to make them better. And so I took the road that is, much less traveled. I decided to stay to represent my home district, despite the gerrymandering scheme, and to say that, look, if gerrymandering is elevating partisanship above everything else in our politics, then maybe the solution is just to put partisanship aside. And that's how most offices, by the way, are elected in this country today. When you look at mayors, city council members, school board members, district attorneys, these people are not elected as Democrats or Republicans. They're just represented to do a job, and then they do that job. And I think, frankly, we could use a little more of that approach in Congress.
Since you've become an independent, has anything changed for you in these last several months, whether it's back home in your district or in the halls of Congress?
Well, for me, I've always approached my role, even when I was affiliated with the Republicans, as being an independent voice for my district. So I think most people just see this as a natural evolution of that. And I'll tell you, I've gotten just tremendous feedback from people on all sides, even from people who identify as Democrat or Republican, who think that, you know what, maybe things have gotten a little too dogmatic. The gridlock in Washington has gotten out of control. The hyper-partisanship seems to just be getting worse and worse and worse. And maybe this is time to have a larger role for independents in Congress and for, frankly, not having as much political division in this country. And so I think that it's been a very good response. It's put me in a unique position, I think, to be able to have influence in Congress and deliver for my district. And I'm hoping that if we're successful, and I think that this is an election that we very much can win, then it will be something of a blueprint, and we can see others start to do the same so that it isn't so rare, and the half of the country that is independent isn't so underrepresented anymore.
Have you heard from any colleagues who are considering going independent or want to go independent?
I heard one who said that he would, if this is Brian Fitzpatrick, if his state had open primaries. And so that's part of the issue, is that both in terms of the rules within Congress and then in the way that the political system is set up, everything is geared towards benefiting the 2 parties. And so we're trying to create a different model here, where maybe we can show that there is a path not only to become independent, but to win re-election as an independent. As I said, that's only happened once in the last 70 years, but I think we really have a chance to make history here. And if we do, then I think it could be an important step for the country.
In the last few months, we have seen the left flank of the Democratic Party notch some key primary wins, while Trump-endorsed MAGA candidates have ousted incumbent Republicans who rebuked the president. Where do you see Congress heading after these midterms? And are you concerned that the polarization and gridlock could get even worse in Congress?
Oh, absolutely. I think it is getting worse, and that this redistricting war is going to make it worse as well, as we have one state after another that's decided to redraw their map in order to benefit one party or the other. And I think you're going to see folks who are willing to work across the aisle become more and more of an endangered species in Congress if we continue to go down this road. But we don't have to go down this road. I've introduced legislation to bar mid-decade redistricting, and I'm working on legislation to end gerrymandering in this country once and for all. And more than that, I think that, this is a moment where we could have perhaps a cultural change, where things have just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And the vast majority of Americans say they're incredibly frustrated by it. Congress has a 10% approval rating. Pretty much anyone will tell you that the country is simply too divided. And so I think that that's maybe the opportunity we have right now with America 250, to remember our founding principles, to remember the things that unite us. Remember our founders, if you read about the founding era, they were often, going at it pretty intensely. There were a lot of sharp elbows. Politics was pretty vicious in that day, but it all took place upon this common shared foundation that we're beginning this great experiment in self-government. We're beginning, something that's really never been done before, and that was kind of the common thread. And so I think that that's what we need more of in our politics, is remembering that the shared values that we have, and then saying that whatever our differences might be on this issue or that issue, we need to remember what the common thread is that unites us.
Do you think the president has embodied that ethos?
I think that all of us, frankly, could improve, and I'm not exempting myself from that either. Certainly, I would not agree with a lot of the things that he said, but I could probably make the same statement for almost all of us who are in Washington, D.C. these days. I think that part of the issue that we have right now is that so much time is spent in politics, pretty much it's the sole focus in D.C. of blaming one side or the other for our problems, as opposed to actually trying to find solutions to those problems. And so I think that's the fundamental paradigm shift that we need, is let's take a common ground-oriented approach, a solution-oriented approach. And I think when that happens, sort of a lessening of the rhetoric and the political divisions and the sort of elements of this being perceived as a zero-sum team sport, that will start to go away when we shift the paradigm towards finding common ground, finding solutions, rather than casting blame.
Congressman Kiley, thank you so much.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.